Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us again on the Seafood Matters podcast. You can help the series by pressing subscribe and share it with family and friends. Joining us today is Rob Fish, worked with the government in Australia as fisheries manager and now with the fishing industry. Hi, Rob. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
I'm really good, thanks. Thank you. If we could just kick off, see, in your early days, what drew you into fisheries?
I'm going to say an accident, Jim. So I grew up in the Midlands, Coventry in the UK.
All right.
So we'll go love of the ocean first, 2 weeks by the coast a year, emptying rock pools of crabs, eventually fishing for mackerel. So that's where the initial start comes from. I studied marine biology at Heriot-Watt Uni, which you will know, so I'm an alumni of the university. I would not class myself as the best student at that time. Did love my time in Scotland. I actually moved out to Australia to play rugby, so it's a bit of a long pathway to get into fisheries management. Ended up going back to study, and did fisheries management in Tasmania, and I loved it from day one. All the concepts, everything was very different to my study of marine biology. I just loved it, and ended up working for the Australian Fisheries Management Authority in Canberra.
Fantastic. How's that mix of science and management shaped your outlook?
Look, I think the science is that important one. The science one is the one that teaches you how to ask the right questions. The fisheries management is very different. The fisheries management is conflict resolution. I really enjoy it. It is very different to marine biology as a science. It helps me understand the basics. Like, it is really good to be able to go into a stock assessment meeting and understand what's happening. But the fisheries management is conflict resolution. Whether it be for a limited resource or between sectors, you're working with the same issues.
If you don't mind me going back a bit, you certainly don't sound like a guy from Coventry.
Not anymore. I think that's part of the travelling. I probably sounded a little bit Scottish after 7 years in Edinburgh, and now I sound a little bit Australian after 20 odd years here.
So from what you've said, you'll have been at Murrayfield.
I certainly was.
Yeah.
And that's perhaps why I didn't do so well with my university studies at that time.
Okay. Well, that's certainly something different, because a hot-blooded student, they would have probably more chance of being distracted by a female rather than the odd-shaped ball.
Well, oddly both, I would imagine, at that age.
Yeah. That sounds more natural.
Yeah.
Late 90s to now, what changed most in Australian fisheries?
I'm going to move this one back a bit, Jim, because it's difficult to have that discussion from the late 90s. I joined AFMA in early 90s, and we'd had a massive change. So this was the period where Australia had stepped into rights-based management. We all knew the direction we were taking. So that's fishers and the government. It was amazing 10 years. Like, we had that period where we had purpose, we knew the principles behind it, and we watched some of the best development of our fisheries in that period. Now I'll do the next bit where it kind of changes. We ended up from the late 90s onward with some more environmental legislation that I don't think was planned as well with our fisheries legislation. So instead of it being complementary, making sure we were sustainable, they've headed into conflict. We've had a huge marine park process here it's been running for 15 years. It is very difficult to talk to industry about how strong their access rights are while we're taking them away with a marine park process. So we've almost had, since the late 90s, we've had that conflict in what we're trying to achieve, and it's very difficult. It's not very productive.
That sounds a bit alarming.
Yeah. Look, I think it's perhaps some of the things that have gone on recently, as we see with the Oceans movie, is we see how big that conflict is. And I don't think we've thought it through yet. Like, it's It's quite clear in Australia that they're looking at quite extensive closures, so 50, maybe up to 50% of our oceans closed. Our concepts around fisheries management, MEY or MSY, or even getting to productive fisheries can't be done when you remove that much access. So we would have a fisheries policy and an environment policy in direct conflict.
And what's driving the direction it's going just now?
So that's perhaps the big one for me, and that's maybe the biggest change, is we've moved into that, the public perception era. Like I grew up in fisheries management where we sat around a table, all the different sectors, the NGOs were there, we knew what the goal was. And yes, there were different views, but we knew the direction. It's slower, but it's deliberative, and we get the outcomes that are better for the community. Now, well, I think we're all aware, we're looking at what happens in the public, it's public opinion. And industry certainly haven't stepped into that space as well as the NGOs. It's quite clear in Australia, even some of our international targets are being written with the government and the NGOs, and industry isn't even involved. So we perhaps didn't adapt that quickly. We're still working on the old regulatory process, and we have to do that. I'm not a change everything. Our representative bodies do a fantastic job, but they are working in that regulatory framework. And the thing that's overtaken us is this social media and everyone having an opinion and ministers making decisions around public opinion. Frightening.
It's not the right way to go.
I completely agree, and I honestly have pushed back against it quite a lot I guess I'm starting to realise that it isn't going to go away. So I think we need to do both. We really have to champion those deliberative processes, our scientists and our fisheries managers, that we need those associations to do that. And then we need to do the other bit. As an industry, we need to step into that storytelling space, which you are already doing, as well as the NGOs do, because it is a vast network, worldwide, well-funded, and we're still sat at the table thinking they're talking to us, and we're not in that yet. We need to be.
Yeah. No, it's very similar to what we are here. Very, very similar. When you say that about the changes in it, what would you say hasn't changed at all?
Seafood, and how much people love seafood. It is one of the things that I keep in mind that keeps me engaged in this. And I do, this is going to sound odd, I have a fishmongers near me, I'll go on a Saturday to watch, and there are queues in and out of that shop. Now, I do think we've drifted away from our consumer a little bit, and that's where we need to get it back. I think the thing that keeps me there is that the consumer's still there. They still love seafood. Massive part of our culture in Australia. Seafood, Christmas, Easter. I just think we need to connect the industry back a bit.
You know, I would say, Rob, one of the things, going out to see or visit our son and his family in Sydney, I would say going down to the Sydney fish market and places like that, I actually got an education myself. Yeah, we have a lot of different species of fish, but my goodness, I didn't realise there were so many different prawns until I saw it down there.
Nope, we definitely like our prawns. So and there's another thing on those positives is the Sydney fish market is reopening, a new building next year. So it'll be the biggest fish market in the Southern Hemisphere. So while we've got these negative stories on how bad things are, we're actually going forward. And you know that's a massive step for the Australian seafood industry. So as of next year, we will have a new Sydney fish market.
I have to take my hat off to them, Rob. They do a fantastic job in selling the industry.
Yes, we have, and we have associations around Australia, not just the Sydney fish market, and they've all done a fantastic job, and they still are. But the spreading your resources between that regulatory process, which they have to be involved in, representing industry, and out into now, which is this other storytelling. As I say, that's where I think we've failed. We haven't even stepped into the space. It's quite. I've had a bit of a dig here on spends on Facebook, etc., on ads. Our biggest spenders are our NGOs, outside miners, etc., and that's not as big. Not combined, the top four are all NGOs.
They've just got obscene amounts of money at their disposal.
I think we can get that. They have a lot of money at their disposal just to do that. whereas we have a set amount of money to do all of the things that we do. And it is that, I think I've heard of someone on your site, it's that opinion holder versus a stakeholder. There's no risk for them to what they do. I watch NGOs enter this space. They have a lot of money. They can engage constantly. They can afford to knock a minister. They can afford to knock a fisheries manager. Next day they say he's great. We're not in that space. We have to work with these people in the long term. So it's a difficult spot for industry.
Times can change. That might change, hopefully.
I'll be honest, I think it has to. I'd like to see our industry groups. Well, we've seen it out of this Oceans movie. How much information have we now seen come out on the industry, selling the industry? It was almost like we needed, look, you need to prod along, you need to be doing more of it. Some of it is fantastic. And then to me, it's that next step. And it's, I guess, the odd bit in that, Jim, is that's what you've done. You are speaking to someone now on the other side of the planet, and I have thousands in my network. And if we keep making those connections, we will. And we'll have to do it with some intent, but we need the same networks that the NGOs have.
Yeah, good news stories. I thought the Sydney Fish Market is a great foundation.
Yes. And I've got no look in there. I've met the new CEO. They are setting it up to tell those stories. There's no doubt about it. But we need more. We need to do it.
Definitely.
We do and I've done it too. You step out, you work with industry, we work with the catching sector. We've never really put the seafood industry together. Seafood industry ends with the consumer, and there's millions of them.
Yeah.
And we need to get back to that network. And I think our honest truth is we'd also need that network to include the other producers. Stop seeing our other producers as competition. I mean, I know they are in the market, but we're all facing the same problems. I watch the farmers facing the same issues with the NGOs. We all across Australia, in fact. Now, if we link together on those key issues, we're food production. There's the food security issue. Yes, things need to be fixed, but they don't get fixed by closing us down. And together, I think that would be a strong network.
One of the things I liked out there, which I haven't seen it in many other places but Australia, was on the seafood counters, you would see on the labels what was wild and what was farmed. And I thought that was great for the public.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I've been involved in labelling seafood, not on that issue, on the farmed wild harvests. They definitely have different customers. There are some customers that will lean into the farm fish, some into the wild. So I personally don't see that one as a risk. There is always someone's going to choose the farm fish, and always someone will choose the wild. Our bigger issue, as you may be aware, is we import quite a lot of fish in Australia. So the labelling issue that has played out over the last 10 or 15 years has been country of origin labelling. So
yeah.
And it's a massive step for industry. It's one of the things that we achieved in the territory. So in the territory, not just where the fish is sold fresh, but even in restaurants, you have to label it which country it's or say whether it's imported or Australian seafood. And it's taken 10 years since we did that, and we're just rolling it out nationally next year, which is massive for industry.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can't compete on some price points from overseas, but we can compete if you can see it's our product.
Would the public want local Australian first?
We know the preference is there for that, and we're also well aware that people have price points. So yes, the preference is for Australian seafood. If it's too high, then that would work against us. Our viewing on that is they're already paying that price because they assume it's Australian already. You do not walk into a restaurant and see discounted seafood. So I think they're already paying. It's
I have the view,
and it's about choice.
Definitely. I have the view as well, Rob, that with it being a wild food natural resource, it shouldn't be cheap.
No, not when you walk in and see beef at twice the price. Like it's not cheap.
It's a top product from a nutritional point of view, low fat, high protein. It just ticks every box, and it shouldn't be cheap. It's a natural resource that people have to manage.
It's the costs compared to other production is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Just the difficulty. It's even getting that fish to the wharf, let's face the truth, it's a hard process.
Very much so. How about your transition from government to working with the fishing industry and stakeholders?
I think I made every mistake you could make, the usual ones. So I should say why first. I joined AFMA at a time when they were going through these massive changes into the property rights type management. They put the objectives in the act. It really was the right steps. I was watching an industry who knew it was the right thing to do but didn't understand it like it was, and they're trying to engage in these processes. So my step out was with some intent, which was industry needs the capacity in this space too if they're going to engage in rights-based management. And the truth, I like fishermen more than the office staff in fisheries management. Just one of those things. Might be my background. Much prefer the company, so I was happy to step out and work with industry. I made the mistake of stepping out, fighting with government as if that was going to achieve anything. You know, we got a couple of things done, but it was constant battles. You'd ruin your relationships. It didn't take me long to work out that I had to work with government. And the moment I got that one, that's when we started seeing some successes. And it's a slow process. My next step, yeah, I guess the next bit in the failure was not engaging with industry well enough. So that's something that's developed I now purposefully take the time to take things back to first principles, make sure the industry are at the point where we can have the discussion about whatever changes are coming before we start. And they're the best people to deal with it then.
Indeed. I think you would probably find you get a straighter response and answer.
Yes. And I enjoy it. Like it's, we put things on the table. We don't do ourselves many favours. Like we talk to fishermen, we say, oh, so let's do the AFMA one back in putting property rights on. We told them they would become more efficient. What we should have said was, as we do that, a lot of you are going to have to leave. And we did. We weren't honest about the steps. So if we're going to improve efficiency, some people are leaving. It was sold like everyone was going to become more efficient, which of course they can't be. So just the honesty with, you're in the fishing industry. If people know where they're going, they know what's actually happening, they'll fix whatever they need to fix. The fact that fishing's still going after the problems we've faced will tell you they are resilient enough to get through the next step, but they've got to be engaged.
I would imagine, like we find in the Northern Hemisphere here, I would expect you would agree that they're the kind of people that if you do engage with them and you're, as you said, you're open and honest with them, they'll respond and you'll be able to trust them.
It is, I think, more so. Not only do they respond when you engage them like that, there's a bit of self-pride in it. They will have the solution. If anyone believes they can have the solution to a fisheries management issue sitting in an office in Canberra or Edinburgh, they haven't got a chance. The realities of standing on a boat and managing a fishery are very different to managing it from an office. So they will be the answers. Farmers have done it so well here. They actually sell their story. We will be the solution. And I don't know of a fisheries management issue that actually wasn't really solved by fishers, working with government and scientists.
That's a good slogan for the
I
industry.
have stolen that one off. I have stolen that one off the farmers, and they've done very well with it.
No, I think that's an excellent way of looking at it. And they do, I mean, it's their environment. They're in that environment more than anybody else.
Yeah. We end up ticking boxes in an office thinking it will play out on the water, and I've learned very early it never does.
I was out on the harbour or nearest harbour, Scrabster, about a couple of weeks ago, and a good friend of mine, a skipper, and he had a sheet of paper and variations that with the rules and regs, and he was just, I wouldn't say in despair, but he was just shaking his head, and he says, "Look, Jim," he says, "I'm looking at this, telling me what I have to do and where I have to do it. Just looking at this paper, I can see that the person that made this up and wrote it has never been in a fishing boat in their life."
So I have to confess, I did used to do that, remember? And perhaps that's the advantage of this is having been both sides. I have seen how it operates inside a management agency at a different time, because I will say, while I worked for AFMA, the support for industry was there. There was nobody in. Everybody my God, we couldn't wait for them to visit. But actually stepping out, so I stepped out when I moved to the territory. I ran vessels for the company I was up there, and it's a quick learning curve on the links to fisheries management and what actually might work on the water.
What did you say? Harvest strategies and allocations, great on paper, are they maybe messy in practice?
I think they're messy on implementation, Jim. I think
Yeah.
it's part of what I talked about earlier is that we used to know where we were heading, and harvest strategies are no more than a tool within that framework. And as we lose that direction, we try and make those harvest strategies more and more technical. They become less and less useful in their job. With my fishermen, I will take them to a harvest strategy and say, it is simply this. You are choosing what your car's going to do, whether it be a Formula One car or a car that you take to the office. And the harvest strategy is the thermometer, and that's it. It will keep your fishery at the right temperature. You want to run a Formula One, it's going to cost you a fortune. You want to run a family car, it's going to be economic. That's all a harvest strategy does. And when we try and make them do more, we try and put social things in or things that we can't connect to the stock, they fail. Fishermen lose their understanding of them. Same with allocations. Why are we still talking about allocations? If we haven't allocated these resources by now, really a manager should tell me why. It's almost that one we put off. We know resources need to be allocated. How have we not done it? It's one of those ones where I know allocation's difficult, but you do it once.
And do you get answers when you ask that?
Yeah, I get the same answer. Well, we've got to go with, we're going to. So AFMA's policies, so we don't see this as much anymore. We had a white paper called New Directions, which set up AFMA, and it was very specific about we were going to give industry these secure rights as quota. While we have been quite successful around Australia in the fisheries management, you can also see how many fisheries haven't got that done or haven't got a harvest strategy. So there's something that's gone awry. It is. I personally believe we've moved away from what we were trying to achieve. That means we drop our capacity in at our management agencies, and we forget core business allocation, harvest strategy.
Would you feel it's maybe just the balancing sustainability with the survival of fishing families?
On this one, I'll talk from Australia. We are not balancing sustainability. We've got very few sustainability issues in our fisheries. There are some issues with protected species. We are balancing those fishing families with some narratives which I don't agree with. So fishing families are absolutely dependent on sustainability, and they know it. And they will be the first to put it in place. What is difficult to work with are campaigns. And they are campaigns against an industry. They're not campaigns anymore to fix an issue within the industry. When I started, the NGOs would work with you. They would sit on advisory groups. We'd look and monitor fisheries. If there was an issue, we'd look at ways of fixing it. And the answer would come from the fishermen. We're not doing that anymore. The NGOs have stepped away from that table and they campaign to close industries, which is very different. It's very hard for an industry to move forward and make the corrections. There will always be sustainability changes we need to make, but we can't make it while people are trying to close you down. I think they're making it harder to get better.
That is so much the case with us, Rob. Quite, I would say, alarming maybe, because it's just exactly what the industry's finding here. And they have got so much, they've, the lobbying parliaments, they've got access to politicians as well as obscene amounts of money.
Yeah. But we could have, and we sit on that. We even value our fisheries around that GVP position. That's where we talk about it. When fisheries, as I've said, I honestly believe our fisheries value is the consumer. It's your transport, it's your restaurants. And if you actually value our fisheries like that, it's phenomenal. It's a vast network. We need to connect it, and it's going to be different. And we need to have the same storytelling arm. If a story comes up, we need to get it out there en masse. We don't do it very well. We will tell the story. It tends to be we're sustainable. We don't do it in that. They're very, very good at it. Oceans is a good example. They tell the emotive story. We're putting facts out. We still have to put the facts out. That's our job. There's no doubt about that. But we need to sell the story too.
Yeah. On your own site there, the Northern Territories. What makes the North unique? Geography, people, species, challenges and opportunities exist there.
Well, it was a very unique challenge for a boy from the UK. So I'll go through some figures first because I find it incredible. The UK would fit into the Northern Territory 5 times over.
Wow.
Yep. So scale first, that's the area we're looking at. It is in the central part of Australia. It's 3,000 kilometres to the nearest capital, and it's Adelaide, which is in the south of Australia. The nearest capital is actually Jakarta. So we are isolated. Population, 250,000. So 150,000 of those live in Darwin. If we had the same population density in the UK, you couldn't fill Murrayfield. Yeah. And I hadn't thought about it. It is. So you are isolated. Your communities are stronger. It's that odd thing. So that's the biggest one. And for running boats, the obvious one, if we're doing fishing, running boats, that makes it hard. Transport out, one main port. So it's difficult to develop fisheries in the NT for those reasons. Different animals. Once you step into somewhere where there really is crocodiles, stingers that will kill the crew, it's a very different environment. Amazing, absolutely amazing. I shouldn't say it that way around. It was an incredible experience. Still is.
That's incredible.
Species-wise for fisheries, different again. This one is even harder to explain. So we are a monsoonal. You build up to a wet where it rains, and it rains like if you think it rains in Scotland, well, we'll revise that. It rains till our rivers flood to the point where the land is basically covered with water for a period of time till it runs off, and then we're left with billabongs. A lot of marine species along the coast have a life cycle where they move up into these floodplains, feed up, and maybe don't come back until they're 8 or 9 years old, certainly barramundi. So very different life history characteristics, I guess, of our fish. Resilient. They are built to survive a very harsh environment.
And would you say you have definite seasons?
Yeah, hot and very hot. They do. I never want to talk or put words into. I certainly know the indigenous population have a range of seasons. I'm not going to tell you what they are. We tend to talk about them in two, which is the dry and the wet. Dry build up wet. So the dry is often doesn't last long enough. And this is the thing. The temperature up there is perfect. It'll be about 30 degrees in the day in what there is their winter, and dry. As the build-up comes, we get to 90% humidity. It's 35 degrees and it doesn't rain. So feel like you're sitting in water. And then the wet, I really enjoy the wet. Storms, heavy rain, clears for a bit if you're lucky. So the weather, so very different weather. It's difficult. So we would refit boats middle of the night just because of the temperature. I mean, things have changed. More air conditioning on boats now. But when I first got there, it was difficult. We would start refits early morning so that it was cool enough to do the work.
It sounds like a real amazing environment.
Yeah, and it was exciting. So when I got there, it was a situation where there was still those opportunities. It is such a harsh environment. A lot of the fisheries hadn't been developed. There is one big fishery in the top end, so the northern prawn fishery. You may have come across David Carter's in one of your friends' books. Amazing fishery, big prawn fishery. So it's well developed, and it's been well developed for a long time. The other fisheries in the territory, I arrived in the territory about 20 years ago, were underdeveloped because it is so hard. So there were some, and still are some opportunities up there. So that's the good news.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd expect to see fisheries development there, not the other way around.
That's really fascinating that there's a place in the world that we can actually.
That was so harsh. We didn't develop it yet.
Yeah. You mentioned it earlier. How have relationships between indigenous population and commercial fisheries evolved?
I'm going to do the positive first, and then I'll do a bit of the history. At the moment, the engagement with the industry is the best I've seen it. There is still conflict between parties to some degree. We now have an Aboriginal fishing company, which, and I certainly agree with it. The government has helped funding to a significant enough level to make them a player in the industry, and that's fantastic. So it overcomes all those stepped issues. They own the local ship stores, they own the local fishmongers, and they have got active operations in fishing. Brilliant. I wish we'd done it a long time ago. It has always been difficult in that engagement process because we were never sure how to do it. So in my whole time there, we did travel through the top end to talk with different Indigenous groups. While we did that, it's one of those ones where you keep doing the same thing, but we didn't see any progress. So the real steps in this progress have actually been a court case that said, well, actually, yes, they have got some fishing rights along the coast. And now we're having to look at how we deal with it. And that's hard because it's a crossover of rights, but it is that positive step. So that first step has been, I think, probably the biggest step forward has been the Aboriginal Fishing Company, which is interestingly very similar to what happened in New Zealand in the end, is that they need to be an active part of the industry. And they should be.
On another positive point, or from when you started, about would you not say, or one I always go by, it's never too late. When you could complain that we could say that it should have been sooner, or it could have been before, but it's never too late. So if it's happening now, well, great.
Yeah, exactly. It's hindsight. It's easy to say. I'm just well aware of how hard people tried over a long period, and perhaps we weren't listening carefully enough. We didn't manage to get it there.
On the north, there are lessons. Is there lessons from the north for the rest of Australia and the rest of the world?
I'm going to go with my experiences on it. Is if you're not working together, it is very likely that you will achieve nothing. I'm looking at the things that we've done up there where that did work. So the seafood labeling we did with the restaurants, not against restaurants. It was, how can we do this? How can we do it better? We put the groups together so we were all heading in that direction. We've seen it for the rest of Australia. They're now catching up, but it was done inside of conflicts, and it's taken 10 years to get the labeling in. We moved an offshore fishery in the territory to quota. Industry went to government and said, please, can we go to quota? Let's develop the fishery. So that was done in collaboration. The Seafood Council, putting things in the Seafood Council where we work together as an industry, which is, how hard that is. We're not very good at working together, is when it's succeeded. Every single time there's been some conflict and we're not sure about which direction we're going in, I'll watch it fail.
See, I think you're 10 years plus chairing the Northern Territory Seafood Council. What's the biggest battles and the proudest ones?
Do the wins first. Let's do the positive bits. The big one for me, which is odd because it's the geeky bit, is we put some purpose in around the council. So we set its direction, put some policies in place, which guides its operation, just makes it far more effective. That led to us, so you remember 250,000 people. We were helping guide policy development for the other associations around Australia simply by putting that framework around it. The big one's definitely the offshore fishery, which we moved to quota. We're talking about a fishery that moved from a handful of boats to one of Australia's biggest fisheries now, supplying seafood to our supermarkets. So they're the success stories you want. An expanding trawl fishery. That's not one we hear of very often. The seafood labelling, that's a good lesson in how long things take. So yes, we've had seafood labelling in the NT now for over 10 years. It is being introduced nationally now next year. It's an odd one. That's probably the one that's closest to my heart. I'll get a tear when the minister says he's doing it because it's so hard. The processes that's the other thing. That's maybe the other lesson is if you want that change, it's not going to come in a day. You're not going to walk into a room and make a change. You're going to stick with it like the NGOs do, and you're going to keep rattling that cage, and eventually we see the right progress. So they're the big ones. Hardest ones is access, and it's the ones in the territory there it's a recreational, until more recently with the NGOs, it has been a recreational fisher, commercial industry conflict, and Still not fixed. Again, it's that they've, to be honest, the recreational fishermen have also stepped into the social media space better than we have. So it's we look at them on their surveys, how they value the fishery. They've done a better job in selling their story.
Have they got power down there? Have they clout? Is there a lot of them?
So fishing is in you can imagine the population, a coastal population like we have in the territory. Recreational fishing is huge. So it's they have a peak body which is very successful. They do not mind aligning with the environmental NGOs, which is a step. We've found it interesting that they've been willing to step away from what were their normal processes, and this is the bit which needs to change, and then rewarded by the minister. So we might be reviewing a fishery, they'll step outside and say, close it. Next thing is closed. These aren't processes that we can work with. So yeah, very powerful lobby group.
Keeping unity across such a diverse seafood sector can't be easy.
No, and that's one of the things that I believed has remained our problem, and it's got worse. There you go. There's the success making it worse. As we got the success in those operations offshore, we get the tall poppy syndrome. And it's almost, it divides the Seafood Council. So that is hard. I think it's one of those things that you have to stay active in that space, talking to members, so that people understand that those things are a success of the industry, not a success of individuals. It's easy to knock people off. It's hard. It really is hard. I haven't given you a good answer there, have I, Jim? I watch the farmers, and they are beef. They sell beef. They are a massive industry. And it seems so easy for them. When we step into ours, I've got everything from a guy that fishes weekends through to a fleet of trawlers. Very difficult.
You said there, wondered if it was a good answer. I would say yes, I would say it was. And I also feel, just listening to you, and what I'm feeling is there's a never give up mentality, attitude with you.
No. Look, and that's...
I'm picking that up.
That's a people's thing, Jim. I find some of the things that are happening to industry now unfair. So I am not walking away, because that move into those bigger movements, which we haven't done yet, is very, very difficult for a fishing family who are on the water most days. And part of me always goes, no, we're not letting this happen. So that's the drive bit.
That's commendable. I would have to say that. I do honestly believe that. On the public perception, do you think it's improving or still battling misconceptions?
This is a difficult question, because I'm going to say both. So I look at the seafood end. It's not like people are walking away from that end of our supply chain. If you mention, is anyone coming for a seafood dinner? If I say I'm putting seafood on here, everyone will be here. At the other end, which is something we've known for a long time, is the image of industry improving? No. And it's not industry's fault for this either. We see the campaigns, we're getting the facts out there, but you're competing against a storyteller. Yeah. So our storytellers are still, we'll do the Mythbusters, and that has to be done. It's fantastic. It gives the storytellers things to bounce off. But our image is being damaged by people who, I believe, are willing to say things that are not necessarily true. That's as polite as I'll be.
Do you feel you get a ear from government or the industry? So it does.
If you'd asked me 5 years ago, Jim, and perhaps even less than that, I would have said absolutely. We run through those processes. We have used a deliberative process in Australia where they have management advisory groups. So those complex matters advise the Fisheries Department, they advise the minister, and it's worked for a couple of decades. The decision making has moved outside that now. I can sit in that process and work for 2 years on something, and then we get a decision left field from a campaign.
Gee.
So I don't believe we're all seeing it now. That's what the Oceans movie is. So leading into the Oceans, we'd had a campaign here against gill nets, and it was the same type of story. So they prime the outrage, stuff you've never seen before. A couple of images of animals caught in gill nets. They were old, 20-year-old photographs. Didn't matter. Yeah. Didn't matter. Outrage was up and running. Like we couldn't even. I mean, I'm 2 years into a fisheries review, thinking this is brilliant. We were doing some economic studies to do the allocations. Within 12 months of that campaign starting, we're phasing out gill nets. So have we got their ear? Yes, the door's always open, but someone else is shouting. It's hard. When I say it's hard, we've got to adapt. We've got to step into that space.
No, it's a loud message, which I really feel you're 100% right with. And if it gives you any power to your elbow, you can take it that pretty much the rest of the world is the exact same as you are.
That was my sudden engagement with the Oceans campaign. So we'd just gone through that gill net campaign. Like it was bruising, to be honest. I'm going, oh, Oceans movie's coming out. First clip comes out. I'm going, oh, this is different. This is very similar to this gill net campaign. Why have we got a single clip out of an Oceans movie that feels like a campaign? And it was. It came out. It's almost like my commentary is not about the Oceans movie itself. It's about this one clip that was used in a very different way. And it was the same thing. It's that primer. And I think because I've been through a few of these now, you can hear it happening. The first thing it'll start with, you're about to see something they kept secret. And everyone's already angry. It's almost like they prime the next bit. I watched the video. Have I stepped you into the Oceans discussion? It's just that 10 minutes. I watched the video and I'm going, oh, this isn't too bad. Like it's a tiny net. What would they be? They're 100 mil floats I don't think that net's more than 3 or 4 meters across. I'm going, this isn't too bad. And then you hear the narrative killing everything in its path. I'm going, oh my God. We've actually got a narrative for something we're not looking at. And it still worked. So that narrative got out. That net is tiny. So this is the bit that's amazing me, is we've got a tiny net, very light net, running over a mobile, muddy bottom, and it's caused the outrage. We cope with farms, we cope with tractors, we cope with mining. Somehow they've managed to create that storytelling so well. So while I don't like it, except they did it so well.
Well, it was somebody in mining that financed it.
Yeah, one of ours.
Yeah.
So that's the other issue in this, is which I find interesting. So it's Minderoo, a miner here, who has pushed marine parks. So they are massive supporters of this 30 by 30 campaign and marine parks, and were with our first marine park group, which is odd because a miner and a large scale miner, and to compare that type of trawl net with his operations would terrify you. So I don't know where that step comes from. They funded it through storytellers. So the group that made that clip, not the whole Oceans movie, that clip, are ex-WWF staff, specialists in storytelling for impact. So for me, it steps outside of that. Let's do it. It's the frightening bit. It steps outside even the documentary piece. It steps outside that. That was systemic. They spread that as fast as they could across the internet. It was designed. They openly say it was designed to get a reaction. It wasn't representative, was it? It's a single trawl net. So in anyone's books, if you do that, that's propaganda. It's not a documentary. I don't mean the broader Oceans work or David Attenborough's work. That's, I'm as brought up on David Attenborough as everyone else. But that bit was propaganda. It fits the definition of it. They have a website where they provide that clip for free. They tell you to spread it out across your network and use these words. That clip, not the Oceans movie, not all the science we have on trawling, not how these things actually work. This clip, and the clip they've got on there that they do for the sharing it's even easier to see the net's not doing any damage at all. How can anybody tell you what the sustainability is of looking at a single net? Would it be great? We would have to pay a lot less for monitoring our fisheries if you could make those decisions on one image. When you do that, it's propaganda, and I don't like it.
Your reaction, do you feel it was accurate or one-sided?
Well, it can't be. There's no accuracy in the single shot. It's a single bit of video. There wasn't a single bit in it that was accurate. So, first of all, it's never been seen before. We personally have been filming Trawl nets for 10 years. We've been filming traps. And when I was at university, we knew how nets work. You can get a book on fishing. Everyone knows how a trawl net works. We can pretend we didn't know what it looked like, but that's not true. That's just priming some outrage. They go on to say it's killing everything in its path. We're watching fish swim out the way of that net.
Yeah.
We don't know where it was. We don't know what they were fishing for. The connection with the bycatch stuff that was done afterwards are clearly not from that boat. That's dishonest. I'm taking it further because I'm not talking about the whole movie, but that clip and how it's been used, jumping into the stuff with Mr. Fry on bycatch, was just dishonest. Claiming that trawling all has 85% bycatch, or they went and bought that bycatch off a boat. How does that happen? Bycatch would have gone back in there. None of it made any sense. So we've got builds them outrage, and once you get that outrage, it's people keep listening, and it's in any of these spaces. So my instant reaction is, let's go back to process and principles and how we do this properly. Let's get back around the table. Well, they're not going to do that while this is happening. But they will do it when someone uses exactly the same techniques to get something else. If we're looking at America right now, same technique, just for something very, very different. Bit of outrage, say something outlandish, and you've got that engagement. Yeah. I think if we don't move back towards those deliberative processes, then things can flip around pretty quick. I think it's a dangerous place to be in, where we're making decisions on today's social media image.
The narrative of the ocean in crisis, where do you think that goes wrong?
By saying it's in crisis. Look, I think it can be in areas. There's no doubt there's bits that we have to do to fix things up, and we were. That's the bit. And the good news stories are not coming out. Like, I live on the east coast of Australia now. So we'll give an example. We are saying the ocean's in crisis, everything's disappearing. I live on the east coast. We were a whaling nation. Thankfully, those things have changed. When I first moved here, you'd get a few whales past each year. Now, I can walk out when the whales are going past. There'll be 20 or 30 out the front. It's gone from, I think, back when I first moved here, it was about, the numbers they counted were about 5,000 whales per season going past. We're up into the 70,000s. Now, if the ocean's collapsing, how is the biggest mammal in there recovering so well? We are having a massive recovery in our bluefin fishery. We have to eat something, so something else must have recovering as well. So our tuna fisheries are recovering. So we've got examples now of where the nuanced fisheries management, it takes time, but does work. I do think there are some crises. There's no doubt about it. We've got some species that are in trouble. But we keep going, here's a crisis, can I have small marine parks? It's almost and it's a consolidation of power. I mean, these are quite detailed for anybody's here, but for me in Australia, I feel that process is, if I can just get all the management underneath the DQ, which is our environment department, then it takes control away from fisheries or farming or everyone else, and it tends to. So it's a weird process where we've almost celebrating that. Let's list up some more species, say that it's bad, declare some more parks, take it into my department. Well, the only thing when we take things in like that into a department, we're not defending it from industry. We're defending it from the minister for fisheries, say, or farming, making a decision. It's quite an odd concept.
It's very much the case. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not us. We're already managed.
Yeah.
Like, government can manage us at any time. So what you're saying is we didn't trust the fisheries minister, which is weird.
Do you feel it's big name documentaries versus real world fisheries, or widening gap?
Yeah, I'm not going to do the documentary bit. I'm going to keep calling it what it is. If it's propaganda, seaspiracy, parts of oceans, not all of it, but definitely those, there is a widening gap. And it is propaganda. It's not. I know that has connotations with things that are far worse, but that's what this is. If it's not truthful and it's not representative and it's designed for an emotional response, not a fact-based one, it's propaganda. And yes, that's widening. So we've gone from fact-based, democratic scientific processes to manage our fisheries for goals that we were trying to achieve to how the internet feels today. And ministers are doing it. They're on a cycle and they're wondering why they're... and it's not just fisheries, is it? So you're watching politics in the UK, I'm quite sure. It's the same. Yep. It doesn't matter what section we're in. If we do the short-term fixes, this is what we get. But I'm not suggesting it goes away. I'm suggesting the fix is we step into the space.
What would you show Attenborough if you had him on a fishing trip?
The crew. I'd start with the deckies and I'd introduce them and they can introduce their families all the way to the top. And that's all he needs to see. He can see the operations. David Attenborough didn't do those videos. We know his original work. They were documentaries. They actually are part of the reason why I liked, whether it was Jack Cousteau, David Attenborough, that's my connection to the ocean. They were the documentaries that I'll remember them for. When you step into WWF, running a campaign like this with your clip and using David's name, I think that's their mistake, not mine. Yeah, so I don't see these as... they're not documentaries. How can they be documentaries? If this was a documentary about trawling, there's a group of people that would be involved, and that would be us.
Very true.
Yeah. I mean, it's a clip, you're probably aware. I don't think that trawling was... I'm pretty certain the trawl shots were filmed in a closed area, it's bizarre. Like, I can see from that film, you can see the light, you can see the daylight. We've done some filming on trawl net. It's got to be pretty shallow. You can't fish that close in the Med. It would be illegal, which is quite a bizarre... I raise that and people say, but it still shows how trawling works. That's like saying driving a car through a field of rabbits shows you how a road works. It doesn't. Well, it's madness. We've said we're going to protect seagrass beds and mud like that by not trawling there, and then we're going to get a clip of trawling there and say, well, that's what trawling's like. Well, it's not. It has been, but it's not anymore. So no, it's not a real... It's fisheries management. Sustainable resource management is nuanced. It takes a long time, a lot of effort. Not, here's a video of something. How does that not look the same as a tractor going across a field?
I would suggest to you should be prepared, because with the logic coming there'll be an invite to come to the UK coming your way.
Oh, well, we have some children over there at the moment, so there might be a visit anyway. So.
Okay, yeah, well, that sounds interesting. I'm sure somebody will be listening to that. Do scientists do enough to defend responsible fishers?
I definitely don't think it's their role to. I'm going to do it in two steps. Our fisheries scientists have been fantastic. There's absolutely no doubt about it. The reason our fisheries are so strong is because of the scientists and the work that they do. We work with them proactively. What's amazing is now you see some of those scientists step out and make that claim, and they're almost pillared as if they've done the wrong thing. Where the science is letting us down is the science that isn't science. We've had a few pieces here. We've had pieces come out from universities where the branding has actually been removed on review because they were WWF pieces funded by them and not through the university processes. We've had risk assessments in fisheries done by scientists that came up with these ridiculous levels of risk under review, not fit for publication. So I think there is a range of scientists. There is no doubt Australia has some fantastic scientists in universities. Some people believe that the ends justify the means, and I think their values have slipped a bit. So not scientists across the board. It's not their job to defend us. I think they do a fantastic job. I think we have some issues that need to be picked up. Some of the peer-reviewed work is questionable. If I go through, I pick stuff up and I go through looking at pieces of work that are to push for marine parks, they haven't proved what they want to say. They just say it. The constant, we've all heard it, the flow out of fish from a marine park will, you'll catch more outside the park. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. You may catch, if it's a tiny little park on a reef, you might get some spillover. If it's a large park in a large-scale fishery, nothing. You
Yeah.
just reduce the productivity. Simple as that.
How should the industry push back? With facts, storytelling, or both?
I don't think this one's just industries to push back on. Sorry, Jim. You mean across the board or the science bit?
Well, yeah, sorry, I should have said across the board.
Across the board, story time. I think I'm having chaired a council for 10 years. I've got to say, I think they do a great job, a very difficult job. And I think we can't add more to the councils, but we need to step into the storytelling space. And we need to step into it in exactly the same manner. And it's because it's not just the NGOs, they step in with a full network. As you say, Oceans was funded by a mining company. Why wouldn't ours be funded by, why couldn't we have a storytelling campaign funded the same way? I think the concept that our arm of network building is funded by industry again is difficult. Like how much extra money? While we're engaging in those processes, we can't. But if we can find the funding and build those networks, I think you'll find ours are much bigger. Much bigger.
On the road ahead, what do you see as the next big challenge?
Our biodiversity targets. So the 30 by what I'm not sure what they call it in the UK, 30 by 30 targets. My fear in this one is we've done the same thing again. So governments have signed up to the 30 by 30 targets, which is 23 targets, a whole range of things. They are transformative measures. Australia's position was definitely, again, developed with the NGOs. We're not being honest with industry. And this isn't just fishing this time. This is farming on land as to what those targets mean. And we are 2025 already. So that's what worries me, is that we're setting up another one of those friction points. Australia says we've almost met our targets. The NGOs know we haven't. So I worry that we're stepping into another one of those processes where the NGO runs into the media space and the public agrees with them and the minister makes some steps, which we've already seen since the Oceans movie came out, steps in the direction of more marine parks, where it's being done in that in the media space. So 2 steps. You've got to include stakeholders in this. If 30 by 30 is essential, like everyone's saying that it is, you've got to engage industry. You've got to engage the public. If we think we're going to surprise the public can you imagine in the UK, by the way, the UK, 30 to 50% of the land mass is being locked up. It's easy to see on land. It's much easier because people just go, well, that's not happening. On the water, it happens quite quickly.
So true. That's so true, yeah. Is co-management still working as intended?
I'm not sure co-management ever worked as intended, would be my honest opinion. Co-management, for me, isn't just talking to industry or having them at meetings. Co-management would have been where industry starts taking on some of those roles. We should have been monitoring our own fisheries. We should have been doing our own compliance. We should have been taking that off fisheries so they're just doing the checks. I think that was the plan. We were supposed to be reducing costs. Well, there's no incentive for government to. So we should have taken those roles. More of an audit role, but we could have done it. We could have been paying ourselves to do a lot of those roles. How we get there now, it gets more and more difficult. It'd be great to have one fishery that just say, well, manage it yourselves, the whole lot, and we'll audit you at the end of the year. Because that's how everything else works.
I like your style with it, and what's going on in the back of my mind as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, when you're meeting the people you're up against and talking about, do you actually envisage you're still on the rugby field playing against them?
No, I probably do at the moment. So this is a very different position for me. You'll probably see the stuff even on LinkedIn. That's all new. That was almost a minister saying, you've got to say this publicly. I would say in those meetings, up until we saw these changes, no, I thought they were on the same rugby team as me.
Okay. Yeah, well,
that's how I saw it. Now,
fair.
I was a forward, and they were probably wingers, but they were on the same team. We went to meetings and we had different opinions, but we were trying to achieve the same thing. We're not even in the same. I don't think we're playing the same sport anymore.
That's a great way of putting that.
Yeah.
100%.
The conflict you're seeing from me, I don't want it to stay like this. At the moment, I am in conflict with several of them. But that's because it's been made to a position where we cannot be asked to go and work with groups that are actively trying to close us down.
Yeah.
Like it's impossible. It's such. I just can't believe socially it's such a. If we think about, well, we're a bit older, so let's go with the history of strikes, etc., and what it meant to impact another man's job. Where now you can roll it out on the internet. I'd like to take your job tomorrow. Really? I watch the anxiety in our industry when that happens, and people, it just rolls off their tongue. Let's just close it. So at the moment, yes, I'm in a slightly more aggressive mode. I'm definitely playing against them, or in a different league. I'm not sure. Collaboration, Jim. I said at the start, it's the only way this works.
Yep.
But you can't collaborate with people who are being dishonest.
No, I'm totally with you there. Totally with you. I agree 100%. Getting younger people into fisheries, do you think they see a future in it? Or some of them coming in?
It's difficult. It's difficult when you see this press around the industry like that, because it certainly puts people off. It's very similar to those farming jobs, isn't it? It's always, I think it's been like this for a long time. Once they're in, they're so passionate about it. It's we have to do better on showing a career path. I think one of our biggest problems is we show a career path onto a decky. We don't sell well enough that career path through, and the other career paths, not just to skipper, but into roles like myself, into management. It's not there. How many people are we doing? Good measures for me would be, do we still actually teach fisheries management at universities? Like I did fisheries management here. The course was brilliant. They don't do it anymore.
Yeah, okay.
It's not even offered. There are universities that do it, but not. This was linked in with the agencies. You went and spent time with the agencies. You went out on boats. Just doesn't happen anymore. So across the board, I think we've got to sell the whole industry.
I love your appetite for it as well and your passion.
Yeah, it's the people, Jim. I don't want to oversell that one. I love fisheries management. I love the conflict resolution. There is something about if you said, do you want to go out for a big dinner or do you want to go down the pub because there'll be a few fishermen there, I'm going to the pub. And that's just how I am. Same with that. Look, I'm really fortunate. Like in Australia, when you say about the people, we have an incredible network for people development. We have a research and development corporation. They spend a lot of that time on developing people. I've received some of that, which I'm very happy for over the years. My last one was a leadership program and I was the only fishing group on it, with our farmers. Same issues, same people. Incredible. Like it's if we don't make that connection better with those groups, with our farmers and the communities, they do a leadership program like that. It isn't just the farmers. We had doctors, rural doctors on there, like build that community. And we that's the bit that I think will be our success.
If you could rebuild the system from scratch, what would you like to do?
I'm not going to rebuild the system. That'll be the first thing. I think when we start to do technical fixes or whatever on our systems, we've already got a problem. I'd go back and revisit our purpose so that we all get on that same page. And then we can work out which is the best route. There's some obvious bits. I'd make our property rights a lot better. But I think the bigger one is, what are we trying to achieve? I don't think we know now. I don't think our managers know. I don't think industry does. I'd go back and say, right, here's the rule book. We're going to manage for production. We're going to make sure these things are sustainable. We're not going to make decisions outside process. But I really do think that sense of purpose is we've got books on it now. We see the why statements, etc. We don't know. We used to. We had our policies in Australia were very, very clear about it was setting up a framework for a innovative industry. It actually says it in the policy documents. We never see that anymore. I'd like to see it that next step where we're providing seafood for the consumer. We built and in that system move away from this, failure is a success. One of my worst bits in this is watching, fisheries manager close a fishery and say, look how well we did. We closed the fishery. Well, no, he didn't. It's a disaster. And that's your fault. So I shared purpose. And it sounds simplistic, but we haven't done it. And I'll give you the All Blacks as the example for it. Not doing so well at the moment, but traditionally, that's exactly what they do. They build up a shared understanding of what they're doing. They have their values, and it has made them the best sporting team. That's how we used to do fisheries management. Now it's all conflict, and all conflict won't help with the environment either. So you're asking me what I'm going to change. I'm going to change it so that we're working together, community. I don't like the conflict. I like managing the conflict. I don't like this manufactured conflict.
Indeed. What still keeps your passion? You're passionate about fisheries after all this years.
That's a good question, that one, isn't it? Still the people. There's no doubt about it. It's my community. You can't not be. I mean, at the point where you're not compassionate about your community, I think you've probably got some other issues going on. I passionate about connecting back with the consumer. I said earlier, like it's to walk down. It's a weird one. In Australia, we have an odd thing around Christmas and Easter. People will queue down the street to get seafood. Down the street. No one's never going to do it at a butcher. They will crew down literally for an hour to get, and I go and join that queue like everyone else. And I think that's the part that keeps me. I think we have much more to offer, and we just haven't quite got there yet.
Well, power to you, Elba, to keep that passion and drive. Any memorable experiences of case studies shaping your insights?
We'll do the big ones. So the obvious bit was with the AFMA policies, well written out, trained as you get it, stepped into AFMA, so everyone knew where they were heading. We saw that 10 years of Australian fisheries development. Fantastic. In the territory, it's the same thing. It is working together. The two big ones, that offshore fishery, all of industry working together with government. How do we do this? It wasn't a fighting every step of the way. It was literally, how can we get this in? And it's been very successful. And then the labelling, because it's the first one I've done where we, you know what we're like, we stay in our silos, we talk to fishermen and fisheries managers. This was the first real project where we were at restaurants, food shops, customers. And I guess that's that first step into that. Well, damn, we should have kept that network. We have to some degree, keep the network going. But all of them are the same thing. Start talking. Like the networks that the NGOs have got start off with discussions. This. And every success that I look back on has been the same. We have a national body that was built. We had some problems when we got a new national body built by everybody working together on a new setup. We're usually not very good at that. So shared purpose, much wider groups. Work with people, not against them, Jim.
Indeed. Any early lessons that still guide you today? Advice for young marine biologists or professionals entering fisheries management?
Marine biologists, if you're passionate, then definitely be a marine biologist. I think for marine biologists, remember that you are not a fisheries manager. They're two very, very different, both equally rewarding, but they're not the same. We see a lot of marine biologists stepping into fisheries management. Fisheries management is something different. I did the management course first. It is conflict resolution. My tip would be learn the basics, learn your principles, and learn them so that you don't have to think about them. So if you're doing property rights, etc., you understand those principles so that when something comes up, you are fluent in it. If you have to go back to check things, but just the basics. We really need the basics. So you've got what's our purpose? Our purpose is to provide that framework for industry. And once you go through that, go back to it. Remind yourself after a year. Because we drift. So it's the same for me. The ones that work in that are set your principles up first, what you're trying to achieve. Work to it. Don't let them drift.
Yeah, wise words. What gives you hope for the future of the industry?
I'm going to do the consumer one again, obviously, and then I see. So the consumer one is massive because if you step away from consumers, I mean, we were generally taught if you step away from your consumer, any second you're going to lose them, and that's it, you're done. Ours haven't gone. We were just about to, as I say, we were about to open the largest seafood market in the Southern Hemisphere, so we've still got that. So that is a massive one. Without that, there is no go forward. And secondly, it's this. Out of the Oceans movie, we've done something different. Out of Seaspiracy, there was odd panic and whatever internally. This one, I'm talking to someone in Scotland from Australia. So we've started those connections, and maybe that is it. Maybe these things are a little bit more organic than we think. They are going to need some guidance, but this, and we're not the only ones. So this, and we're in an age group where people probably thought you wouldn't do this. So this to me is the other one's definitely been the drive. Fish market, consumers, love of seafood. The fact that we are now able to make these connections suggests to me we can take it a lot further.
How do you feel, Rob, about because you're very much about the consumer and the market, I would call it, which I'm right with you. I would even maybe take it a stage further. How would you feel that the market, traders, shores, people there should be more joined up thinking, they should be included in the management?
Yes. So everyone from in the seafood industry, and the seafood industry will be the truck driver that takes it, everything, everybody, and when you start doing that, you step into, do you know what? This probably does include beef, sheep, because there's a lot of more crossover than we think.
Yeah.
I see that pushback from people when I go to try to spread it out that far, and they go, "Oh, they're our competitors. They're our competitors. We know the figures. 30% of the food sold in restaurants is seafood. Doesn't matter what we do. We could literally market forever. We might push it by 1% for a year. It's nothing. It stays at 30%. So, is beef our competitor, or should we be working together? If they've got the 50% and we've got 30%, and we're never going to take more than 1%, we should work together.
Yeah, it's just so refreshing with your being so honest and upfront.
Yeah, well, isn't it that odd thing? It's a COVID thing, Jim. I had a lot of time sitting in here. to have sometimes we are running at things so hard we can't see them.
Yeah, very much the case. What's your views on the evolving relationship between science, industry, and policy?
We think we've got to provide more support for it, but we need to get it back to how it was. The science side of it, one of the biggest one, and it's even for me now, is the how it is presented to industry. Like if you go pick up any industry paper at the moment, and the language, it's a long time since I went to university. People can't follow it. Like it's if we're going to engage with this, we need it in formats that industry can understand. I'm not talking about dumbing things down, but in language that can be understood. The other one was policy and fisheries management. I think that one I've been clear on it. That needs its direction back. So I'm not suggesting we push away from the old system. We definitely get back to it. We need to push it back to that. So there's those deliberative groups, because there's the accountability. And it's just that on top of that, we need to step into the other space. And when I say we step into the storytelling, I want us to take our scientists with us and our managers.
Yeah, I don't know. That message has come over loud and clear. I really respect that, what you've said. Definitely.
Yeah. So I'm not throwing the baby out just yet. I'm saying we're there. The systems are there. Our representative bodies do incredible jobs. You look at some of the work, and I can't remember her name. I just saw a piece from the Scottish Fishermen's Association. Is it Fishermen's Association? It's exactly what we're talking about today. Exactly the same thing. To run through, and it's the NGOs moving away from process. Well, if we're all saying the same thing, we all fix it together.
Yeah.
We think the numbers aren't there. The numbers are definitely there.
What would your take-home fish be?
For me,
Yeah.
it's a personal one, so it's goldband snapper would be my first choice. So it's a tropical reef fish. It's a fish. It's a fish species that's part of the fish offshore fishery that we developed in the territory, and it's a trap caught fish, which we did a lot of development on the traps. So I have quite a close affinity with the fish anyway. Great tasting fish. So that one it's a selection. It is a great tasting fish, but it's part of my background.
Okay.
Blue-eye trevally from down south. Beautiful cold water fish.
Okay.
The big white flag. So that'd be a lot more like fish from cod, fish from the UK.
Mm-hmm. And is it the Trawl? Is it a white fish?
Yeah. Yeah, so I've done that name now and called it blue-eye cod or blue-eye trevally. I don't know the scientific name. That's terrible, isn't it? But
Okay.
yeah. If you're in Australia, it's the one to look up for. It'd be still blue-eye cod, I think.
Well, I certainly will be. Our family are there, and
Yep.
in fact, I went onto Google Maps yesterday before our chat today, and I was seeing the distance between our sons in Sydney and yourself, and maybe come out your way.
Yep. Easy. It's only a day's drive, Jim.
We
do have aeroplanes.
Is it far? Is it far?
Well, it's a day's drive to Sydney from here. If you were to drive,
oh right, okay,
it's an hour on the plane.
Okay, yeah. And if you,
Australians will drive it. They will drive that to go for a weekend. It's a very different. I have not entered that long distance driving, but they'll happily drive 5 hours for a weekend or 10.
And do you still go to the Northern Territories yourself?
Yes, so I still sit on advisory groups there for 3 of the fisheries. So these groups still do meet to some degree. I am, and this one might surprise you, I am also on an advisory group for the Marine Park Network in the north. So I'm the industry member on that, which sees me travel up there a bit. I do have work around Australia, which is why I'm here now. But yes, and if I don't go, I do start to miss it quite quickly.
Where can our listeners follow you online?
Well, that's the one which is an interesting question because I wasn't online at all before we had these problems. LinkedIn is probably the best place to see me rambling about things.
No, I wouldn't class it as rambling.
So it's probably a watch this space thing. Because while I've talked about that networks, I am intent on developing that further. So we might get back in contact when we have the next step.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I would just like to maybe fold it up at that, Robin. Thank you so much. I love your passion, love your enthusiasm and drive. And I think you could take heart that there's so many people who follow you. I know fishery scientists well in this country who follow you, and they're absolutely of the same mind as you. So you have like-minded people around. I can assure you of that. So,
well, thank you. And thanks for the chat.